Ubisoft's previously titled game Gods and Monsters is now Immortals FENYX Rising. To get right into it, outside of the general open-world RPG exploration and puzzle solving, the primary thing you'll be doing in this is combat, which is what I'll be fully breaking down here today to give you a better feel for how it plays, kind of like virtually trying to hand you the controller. That might sound kinda silly, but core gameplay is the main focus here at Boomstick Gaming, so I hope you enjoy what I have in store for you. Now, a really quick general overview before we really deep dive into everything. FENYX Rising is somewhat arcadey action focused and fairly quick, with an emphasis on grounded and aerial combat, along with utilizing the various godly abilities you'll acquire along your travels. The base foundation of the game seems to be heavily inspired by Breath of the Wild, which I'm fine with since that's one of my favorite open world games, and Ubisoft and Nintendo are already bros anyways, but the pace of combat in FENYX Rising is completely different than Zelda, feeling to me more akin to something like the earlier God of War titles, Darksiders, or Kingdoms of Amalur. Don't worry, I just got all the arbitrary other video game comparisons out of the way early, so now we can just purely focus on how FENYX Rising actually plays. First, the basics. Sprinting is mapped to X on an Xbox controller and consumes your stamina resource to use. Dodging is a tap of that same button, and if it's done with perfect timing, you will get a brief opening of slow-mo to inflict more damage. There are two attack buttons on the right trigger and right bumper. Light attacks use your equipped sword, and heavy attacks use your equipped axe. You can switch between these light and heavy attacks mid-combo to use your favorites from both in one string, or to just avoid the attacks with longer animations. Or alternatively, you can just cancel out of animations at any time with a dodge. Long presses of the attack buttons can lead to different attack variations as well. Then by pressing in both of the shoulder buttons, you have a parry, which seems to work on most all oncoming attacks except the heavier ones that flash red, which are not counterable. The window for parries is fairly long, but not too forgiving to where it felt overpowered compared to the traditional dodge. Then you have the bow, which can quick fire, charge shot, and also fire Apollo's arrow, which is one of the godly upgrades I already had access to. This can be used to manually control the arrow to nail easy headshots, but it seems like it's more often used for the numerous puzzle elements you'll be regularly coming across. There is a sneak attack element as well, which seems like I had a bonus invisibility effect that you probably don't start the game with. Then, you have your godly powers mapped to holding right trigger plus the face buttons, which will consume your stamina resource on use. Most of these were good damage dealers or combo starters, but some, like Hercules' Strength, had numerous practical uses in and out of combat. This can be used as a way to close the gap on faraway enemies, to continually attack while remaining airborne, lift heavy objects, or to grab and move faraway things from a distance. Each of these powers have their own independent perks that can be upgraded, which will improve their effectiveness, along with your main skills, which dictate many things like traversal options and combat mechanics. As far as different weapon types, not quite sure yet since I only found different tiers of swords and axes during my playtime. These do have passive abilities which can be upgraded, and there seems to be a big focus on gaining extra effects depending on your combo meter count, which is a pretty good way to reward those who play well and seek out that extra depth of the combat system. Now, other than the obvious whittling down of enemies' health bars with sheer DPS, there is also a meter below enemies' HP that shows when you're about to break them, stunning them for a brief moment, which even more encourages a more aggressive approach. Then you have your potions and consumable munchies assigned to the D-pad. The red are health potions, the blue stamina, yellow a defense buff, and purple an attack buff. These will instantly apply their effects, but if you happen to run out of potions, you'll have to resort to using your consumable edible items instead by holding down one of the directions on the D-pad, which has the downside of doing the effect over time. The only way I found to restock my stock of potions was to travel to the one cauldron I came across, which allowed me to craft more. The potion meta doesn't stop there, and these each have their own skill trees to upgrade as well. These can boost how much health and stamina they provide, or various improvements and bonus effects for your attack and defense potions. I was not planning on dedicating this much time to potions, but there you go. One of the more unorthodox elements I came across in FENYX Rising was the system called Typhon's Rage, which I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like the more you stick around one area killing enemies and completing activities, the higher chance of it becoming a Wraith Zone. This turns the area an eerie red as strong undead enemies try to hunt you down. Once the leader is killed, the area will then revert back to normal. Since there are 7 pretty large regions with their own unique biomes in the full release, it's hard to say how often these will really happen normally once you can freely explore everywhere. Overall, to start winding this down, it seems like Immortals FENYX Rising leans heavily into a more aggressive and offensive playstyle with the occasional puzzle here and there, with a big focus on amassing different tiered gear to be able to do it all the more effectively. You are luckily not drowned with loot in this, and all the pieces I found were either hidden in chests behind tricky puzzles scattered around the map, or tied to certain elite boss enemies that you could choose to take on. My enjoyment of loot systems that overload you with a bunch of junk, constantly requiring you to open the menus, is definitely at an all-time low, so this less is more approach is definitely a better alternative because it makes the set-piece activities out in the open world feel that much more impactful. There is a lot more I could talk about outside of just the combat and RPG elements of the game, and I have enough good footage to make an entire other video just on general exploration, world design, and puzzle solving, but I'm going to leave that one up to you on if you want to see more preview coverage of Immortals FENYX Rising, so let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. Lastly, before closing this all out, a special thanks to Ubisoft for letting me go hands-on with this early. I did have a few recommendations for tweaks and changes to the formula I sent their way after playing it, but overall, I had a pretty fun time freely being able to do whatever I wanted without the game trying to hold my hand and force me to do stuff. I'm hoping everything I covered in this helped to give you a better feel for the game, and if you happen to enjoy my gameplay mechanics and systems focus, consider sticking around at Boomstick Gaming because that's what I enjoy covering the most. As always, this has been Alex, thanks for giving this a watch, and I'll be seeing you in the next upload.